Hello everyone, Art Burns here. Hope you're all having a great day. I wish you well today. So, one of the most amazing benefits of this stuff that I talk about, right, when we learn to live in the present moment and practice being mindful of what is happening right now, right? We're not thinking about the troubles that might be looming in the future. We're not thinking about all the different difficulties and all the different mistakes we made to get to this point and the lost opportunities and things that we wish had happened differently. When we allow ourselves to separate from all those different thoughts and instead just anchor ourselves into this present moment, what it does is it relieves our stress and enables our happiness. It really does. I mean, before I started practicing mindfulness, I really wasn't very happy. I mean, I was successful, a lot of people thought that I was very successful from the outside. I had it all, but I never had true happiness. And that's the thing, is that most of us in our lives, we attach our happiness to our circumstances, right? But the circumstances are, that's an external thing. And even when things are really good, they're only going to be that way for so long, right? They're not, it's not going to last forever. Ultimately, what happens is our happiness comes back down, and when we can practice instead really just being present with what's happening right here, right now, we allow happiness to happen inside of us. And that's something that nothing can shake, right? Even when things are really, really bad, you can still be happy, And as I've said here many, many times, compassion is intrinsic to this whole concept, right? And the whole, practice and the whole, everything about it, right? Compassion is very intrinsic to mindfulness, right? But also intrinsic to mindfulness is the concept of non-judging, right? And as I said the other day, non-judging and compassion are kind of very much intertwined with one another as well, right? But I want to talk today about non-judging specifically, right? And it helps to understand while we're talking about, or when we're trying to think about non-judging awareness, right? It helps to understand that that everything that we perceive, everything that happens to us, right, inside of our minds and our emotions, right, it kind of exists in our nervous system, right? It's not necessarily like let me say that differently. When we perceive something, right, it's our perception of that thing is based on our context and our kind of past and understanding and judgment in a lot of ways, right? And this is how we color the things that happen in our lives, right? So for instance, and again, judgment in the sense of, kind of comparison, right? Like judgment in the sense of like, this is good, this is not good, right? But the thing is that something not good can only be not good when it's compared to something that we think is good, right? And so in a lot of ways, we create this sort of duality of what we think is good and what we think is not good, and these become prejudgments, right? They become preconceptions, and this is where we get into reacting to those things that we are prejudging as either good or bad. I was talking the other day with somebody, and I kind of illustrated this concept from the standpoint of just looking at a tree, actually. Okay, so for many people, a nice tree full of leaves in the summertime, that looks like a very attractive thing, right? It's a place to get out of the sun. It's nice and shady. It might smell nice. There's a nice feeling to a tree on a really hot day. You also just looking at the life of a tree. Thinking about the roots and thinking about the age of the tree. A lot of people would find a tree to be very, very appealing to them, right? However, if you talk to somebody who has severe allergies or even moderate allergies to the pollen that trees produce, well, then a tree all of a sudden doesn't look so inviting, right? So for one person, a tree could be extremely inviting, but for another one, a tree could be extremely repelling, right? There's nothing different about the tree, right? The tree is just the tree, but these two people will treat the tree differently because of the judgment they have, right? The one person is afraid of the tree because of the pollen, and so therefore that person is never going to enjoy the shade that the tree can provide, right? But the person who doesn't have allergies thinks nothing but good things about the tree. This person is never going to have any second thoughts about going and enjoying the shade of this tree, right? But again, the tree is just the tree. Everything about it, everything different about it from these two people is the judgment of it. Right now, of course, you might say, well, Art, I mean, the person's allergic. What do you expect, right? But in fact, when you become present with what's happening, and I am someone who used to suffer from severe allergies, including pollen from trees, right? When you really become present with what's happening, you realize that it's not actually the pollen of the tree that's causing the problem, right? It's actually the inflammation of my sinuses that's causing the problem, right? And I can adjust things in my diet, I can adjust things in my lifestyle to eliminate that congestion and that inflammation in my sinuses. And once I do that, I'm no longer allergic to the tree. Right? And so again, this is where, it wasn't the tree to begin with, but yet I was convinced for many, many years that the tree was bad, right? Tree bad, and that's a judgment, right? And so when we can look at the tree honestly and say, well, is it really the tree that's making me allergic or not? Then we can make changes in our lives. We can kind of look at all the different angles that might be involved, right? And of course, the tree is just one example, right? I mean, it could be anything else, right? Like, for instance, a tall person is only considered a tall person when you put them next to a short person. Right? Otherwise, it's just a person, right? Like, it's just a tree, it's just a person, it's just a thought, right? A good thought and a bad thought, right? A good thought is only a good thought when you place it next to a bad thought. But really, when we start to practice this, and it's really it's funny, there's a concept of practicing mindfulness, right? Which is, there's only so much that can be explained, right? There's only so much that makes sense in a verbal vocabulary context, right? The real learning, or at least half of the learning, comes from the experience, right? I just noticed that I'm actually wearing a shirt with a bird on it. This was totally unplanned, but the Buddhists, I was just reading in a book the other day that the Buddhist practitioners who really mindfulness arises from the Buddhist traditions, 2,500 years of contemplative practices, right? The Buddhists have a way of explaining this sort of way of learning mindfulness and about meditation and all these different practices as two wings of a bird, right? That you need both wings, right? Otherwise, the bird's just going to fly around in circles, right? But one wing is the teaching, is somebody telling you about some of these concepts and you understanding it on a conceptual level, as language can tell you, right? But the other way to learn it is, again, through the experience, right? And so when we sit and we start to meditate on a daily basis and we start to really commit to doing these practices, and again, it's not only, as I say here a lot, it's not only formal meditation, sitting down, doing nothing else but meditating, right? Which means, in the way that I work, which means simply just paying attention to your breath, right? It's just bringing awareness to your breath and allowing the thoughts and the emotions to just kind of, and the sensations of your body to just kind of flow through you, as opposed to taking you like a wave in the ocean, right? And throwing you all around, right? Instead, you can just sort of surf the wave, because you're present with your breath, right? And so when we do this, right, when we practice this, when we commit to spending a little time every day, but again, that's the formal part of meditation, right? And so doing that every day is enormously beneficial, right? But also, when we can start to pay attention to what it is that we're doing, even when we're not meditating, okay? So like when we're driving our cars, when we're walking around our homes or our offices, when we're eating, when we're, doing dishes, when we're brushing our teeth, when we're showering, when we're doing all of the things in our lives that are automatic, right? When we can do those with some level of intention and with, paying attention to them in the present moment, right? Just like meditation, this becomes a way that we start to feel this presence. And once we start to feel this presence, we start to notice the way that we judge things, right? We notice how everything we approach, whether it's a tree, whether it's a thought, whether it's another person, whether it's a flat tire, or it's a phone call or an email, everything in our lives, right? When we realize, when we allow ourselves to be present with what's going on as it's going on, we understand how much of this prejudgment really happens. And once we understand that, that's when we can really start to challenge it, right? And we can start to break free from it, right? We can start to feel as though, you know what, this thought is just this thought, right? And also we start to see it on a kind of third person detachment, right? Like when you're going through something difficult, right? You see yourself going through that difficult thing, not as you're stuck in it, but as you're watching it happen. And watching it happen, now you can kind of see, and you can kind of, approach it with a playfulness and a sort of compassionate curiosity, right? Which allows you to then get through things that otherwise would kind of derail and hijack your entire day. You're now able to just sort of see what's going on and just sort of let it happen, and let it happen presently, and let it happen without your judgment, right? Because again, a thought is really just a thought. A thought is neither bad nor good. Same thing with emotions, right? Sure, we have negative emotions, right? Negative emotions are things like anger, like shame, like guilt, like grief, like jealousy. These are all negative emotions. And then there's positive emotions of happiness and love and joy and excitement and hope, right? These are the positive emotions. And surely as we develop the awareness that comes from this stillness, this non-judging awareness of what's happening as it's happening, then we can choose to dwell in those positive emotions. And again, the point is that we can be happy, right? We can be happy even under the most challenging circumstances. And that, my friends, is the key, right? Because when we are happy, we are successful. Right now, sure, there's people out there right now who are going to say, well, you don't need to be happy. You need to be a good parent. You need to be, you need to make money. You need to be a successful person. You don't need to be happy, right? And I'm sure, unfortunately, that's the way people really do feel, right? But the fact of the matter is that, 10 times out of 10, if you look at somebody who's really successful with what they do, the people who are successful at parenting, the people who, in raising, well-balanced, kind and compassionate children, the people who have a lot of money, who make a lot of money, the people who are, as I told you in yesterday's video, even naval officers, right, who are compassionate. Compassion is a quality of happiness, right? that even in the Navy, it's seen that these qualities are what makes us successful. Right? Like if you look at the parent again who is raising, well-balanced and happy kids, that parent is most likely going to be a happy person, right? The person who makes a lot of money is a happy person, right? Now, not always, of course not always. There are some, people like Ebenezer Scrooge, right, who is definitely not a happy person, but definitely made a lot of money, right? But that's not really success, is it? That's just money. Right? But people who are successful, like the people who really have that thing going, right? You look at them and they are happy, right? And that's what makes them successful. They're not happy because they're successful because they're happy, right? Because again, the tendency that we have towards our happiness, right, is we tend to only allow our happiness, we attach our happiness to the things that are happening in our lives, right? So when we get a new phone, or we get a new toy, or we get a new car, or we get a new job, or we get something, some event happens in our lives, it makes us happy, right? And for some period of time, that happiness will last and it'll feel very fulfilling, but eventually the circumstances outside our lives are always going to change, right? And when they change, our happiness goes away with them. Right? And so the key to true happiness is this non-judging awareness that I talk about, and the ability to be present with what's happening as it's happening, and just accepting what is happening as it is, what it is, right? So again, the bad thought, the emotion that runs through you, and the you know the turmoil that you might go through, right? Through your difficulties in life, right? Situations are just situations. Thoughts are just thoughts. Trees are just trees. A person is just a person, not tall, not short, right? And once we start to think this way, and once we start to see the world this way, what happens is we start to blur the lines of the separation between us, right? And this brings us back to compassion, right? Because when we see that other people are just like us, right? They're just people who just want to be happy. They just want to be free from suffering. They want to be happy. They want to have fulfilling lives just like we do. And when we see that, right, when we can start to feel that, that's when we can break free from this sort of duality, right? And then we can sort of, be more compassionate. And in that compassion, it breeds the positivity and the warmth of the heart that is really what ultimately, drives that happiness, right? So I hope that all helps you today. I know this is, I just said a lot. If you have any questions about this, or if you would like to talk about any of this, right? If you'd like to learn some of these very basic practices, because that's the thing, again, I do these videos and podcasts every single day, Monday through Friday, and I tell you a lot, right? And I just told you a lot here. I just talked for 15 minutes about a number of different things, right? All the talking in the world, right? I could give you books, I could give you, magazines, I could give you movies to watch, I could give you a list of videos to watch in addition to mine, and you will learn something about this, but you really learn through doing the practice, right? That's what it is, right? So while this, again, the two wings of the bird, right? So while this instruction is very, very valuable and very helpful, equally as helpful is just sitting down and doing the practices, right? And so if you'd like to learn some of these practices, I would be happy to tell you how to do them, okay? They're super easy, very, very simple. All it requires is a little bit of determination and commitment to spending the time to do it. But believe me, folks, look at it as an investment, right? Because the return on this investment, if you can spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, okay, plus bringing this non-judging presence and awareness to the times where you're washing your dishes, or you're doing your laundry, or you're walking your dog, or you're brushing your teeth, or you're cooking your food, or you're eating your food, or you're shopping for your food, or you're driving to the store to get your food. All of these things are opportunities that you can complement and supplement this formal practice, that so you only have to spend a few minutes a day, right? And that's the magic of this. All right, so if you'd like to learn anything more about this, please, I invite you to get in touch with me, and I invite you to hit me up and let me teach you some stuff. Okay, it won't take much and it won't take long, and it's like I said, the return on this investment is better than any other investment you can make, because it's your happiness, and ultimately your happiness is your success. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. I wish you well, and I'll be back again on Monday. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Take care.